Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. I'm your host, Rob Dew. Let's get right to it. If you type in Sandy Hook false flag into a YouTube search engine, you will find countless, hundreds of thousands, probably millions of videos that have been posted, created by independent researchers out there. I mean, the information on Sandy Hook is voluminous, to say the least. And so I think it's kind of odd that recently, some documentary filmmakers put up their documentary. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes long, and it has been hit by numerous copyright claims out there by certain groups that just don't seem to want this information to get out. Well, we're about to have two of the filmmakers on there of this. It was a large group project, and they go by the name Independent Media Solidarity, and we'll tell you where you can find more information on them in a second. But it just goes to show you that anytime information gets out there and tries to be censored, it's just going to make it more valuable and more people are going to want to see it. Alex tells the story all the time how a lot of Army guys come up to him and they said, hey, our officers are telling us not to listen to your show, and it makes us want to listen to your show. So this always has a backfiring effect. I'm joined now by two members of Independent Media Solidarity. That's Tyranny News Network and QK Ultra. They have elected to go by their YouTube handles and remain anonymous because of the nature of the information that they have been sharing, and they're also going to describe some of the attacks that they've been undergoing as a result of putting out the documentary We Need to Talk About Sandy Hook, which I have watched, and it's mind-blowing, all the points and questions that they bring out in this. Guys, are you there, and can you hear me?
Yes, I am.
All right, that was Tyranny News Network, and we have their YouTube channels up there, so you can go by and visit their YouTube channels. But Tyranny, let's start with you real quick. What was your reasoning for putting this group together, or getting this group going and working on this documentary?
Well, first I want to say thank you, Rob, and to Alex Jones and the rest of your crew for allowing us to come on and share some of our information and to just kind of bring awareness to our project and our documentary, which we really, I guess, the primary reason we're on is to hope everyone gets the chance to watch that. But there's a behind the story too, and that is yes, exactly, that how did this come about? And I would say that the person most responsible for it isn't with us here today. He goes by Mr. Stosh 314 on YouTube. That's his handle. He is currently taking a well-earned vacation after months of hard work on this, and has essentially passed the baton to us to try to keep things moving until his return. But he was really the one who had the idea. And we had a research group in place. There were probably somewhere like upwards of 60 individuals who were researchers and who had done videos on this topic of Sandy Hook previously. It was a private group, and we decided at some point in time after listening to his idea that we could do this. And so the concept was that individuals would produce a segment on a particular topic that was that they particularly were interested in, and nothing would be allowed if it was going to be objectionable to any others in the group. And in the end, we basically wound up with 10 individuals submitting material for the final product, and then it was up to Mr. Stosh and myself to put a beginning and an end and to kind of fit this stuff together and to determine the sequence. And it was really fate that it came together the way it did. And so that's the backstory. And it was 9 months in development too, by the way.
And this is a 2.5-hour documentary if you haven't seen it. It has been pulled off YouTube several times. We have a link on the article video. We need to talk about Sandy Hook. We put a new link up today that has happened. QK, what was your role in this? And was there any new information that you found in making this, or had you already figured a lot of this stuff out? What was your I guess, epiphany moment?
Well, I joined the project pretty early on, and I had a bunch of ideas that I wanted to present, but I kind of narrowed it down to the one thing that I did add a segment about. And yeah, there's a lot of great researchers involved with this project, including some people who didn't contribute segments, who just did support work, like a guy named Brian.
Yeah, I was just amazed at the amount of information that you guys have put together so concisely. And, for 2 hours and 45 minutes, it didn't feel like that. And it's being an event that recently happened. We're approaching the 2-year anniversary right now. I guess if you guys had like a minute each to explain what your biggest red flags are in this event, what would they be? Go ahead and first, Tyranny.
Boy, that's a really tough one. I think that it's very hard for me to pinpoint. I've had that question before put to me, and I've said, well, let me think on that, and I've thought about it, and it's really hard to say. I think really it's all everything about the whole thing is suspicious. We can point to well, one of the things that we have to look at is, and this is kind of a real sensitive area, but it's really a touchy area because it's kind of speculative, but it's so overwhelming when you see the families, the supposed victims' parents, and so forth, and their behavior. And I don't know anybody personally who would react and to act as they did immediately after this supposed tragedy. So there's that, and that's a huge thing. And I think a lot of people kind of saw that there was something weird about this when they first saw, for instance, the one parent, Robbie Parker, doing his interview and kind of appeared to be getting into character to be the the grief-stricken father, but was smiling and cohorting with the people before he got up to the mic. I'm not sure if that's really. We try to avoid the speculation stuff, and so that's why this is a different area for me. But that's what I think would be what most people think is just impossible to imagine.
Well, and I'll say this: when that incident happened and we saw the live feed coming off CNN, we saw Robbie Parker. We actually rewound it back on our DVR and watched it again here at the office, and we put that on the air pretty immediately, just saying, this looks odd. We're not saying anything because you don't know how you're going to react in a situation. I have children. If one of them, something like this to ever happen to them, I can tell you this: I'm not going to go out and talk to the media. I'm certainly not going to talk to CNN. I'm going to be as far away from all that as possible, trying to not go insane at that moment. But just the smiling, the demeanor. I got my degree in theater. I've seen people get into character, and that to me looks like he's getting into character. But QK, what do you have to say about your biggest, I guess, smoking guns or red flags?
Well, I'll add this about Robbie Parker, and if you examine his statement that he made there, it's very peculiar. He even sends his prayers out to the shooter right there, which, if he was grief-stricken one day later, that's awfully big of him. But I'd say that the thing that got me was the misidentification of the shooter on the first day as being Ryan Lanza. I mean, that was a big red flag right there, because it's an impossible story of Adam supposedly having Ryan's ID on him, and those two supposedly hadn't seen each other in years.
In 2 years, yeah. And in fact, Ryan says that, and then apparently we haven't seen Ryan Lanza in a while. And
No,
go ahead.
He's made a couple of small appearances. He made an appearance at Nancy's memorial, May 1st, 2013. But outside of that, he's not to be seen.
Yeah, very, very peculiar indeed. You guys cover some interesting house sales that go on for $1 or $0. And then recently it just came out in the news that the Lanza house was sold to the town of Newtown for $1 to turn it into a park or something like that. They're going to tear down the house. But nobody ever talks about the guy living next door to the Lanza household. Why don't you guys go into that? That was peculiar. You guys show a bunch of footage of a lot of police activity around the neighbor's house, but nothing going on at the Lanza household.
That's right, and that was a segment that I actually did, Rob. It was basically I felt it was very curious when I saw a photograph, excuse me, a particular photograph fairly early on, and this was actually something that I saw on the blog insanemedia.net, which, as it turns out later on, we would wind up working with Swan Song, who was the person who wrote that article for insanemedia.net, and he became a member of IMS. But the picture depicted, it was obviously shot from a helicopter. It showed the Lanza neighborhood, and it showed where they had essentially set up a roadblock and a barrier there at the road at the end of the driveway, and they had a bunch of vehicles in the drive, and there was, of course, some what looked like investigators mulling about. And as it turns out, it wasn't the house. It wasn't the Lanza house. It was the house next door. So that was that was very curious. But when I looked at some other photos that were also taken later in a series, again from above, we see that there is tons of tracks where they've just driven over the lawn at the house next door, and nothing at all to indicate anyone or any activity had occurred at the Lanzas. So I was very baffled by that. And as it turns out, the person who owns the house next door is John Trent Acosta, who was affiliated with the Newtown Savings Bank, which is affiliated with, they're the ones that cooperated with the United Way to set up a fund, which that fund was set up the very day of the incident, I should say. We did confirm that.
Yeah, that's a little peculiar. All this madness going around, and somebody's going, wait, we got to set up a memorial fund for these people. Hey, hold on, let me take care of that. And there's been other people out there that have brought up questions. Wolfgang Halbig is another researcher that has come on the scene and had lots of questions. And he seems to get the cold shoulder anytime. He's even traveled up to Newtown to talk with people. And the cops are, in his face trying to get him out of there. He's ignored when he goes and speaks at these meetings. They look at him with indignancy, definitely. But you guys just released an article you sent me. It's very long, I guess 2 days ago now. Sandy Hook documentary phenomenon isn't about Sandy Hook, the fortress and what's inside. What's the gist of this? What made you want to put this out?
I was the person who wrote that, and I kind of think of that as a kind of a State of the Union type thing. It really just gives a real good depiction of what's been happening, because it's just been every day. We've been just astonished by the phenomenon that this has become. And I say that it's not about the details of the documentary or even about Sandy Hook. It's about really two things. The first one is free speech, because we have this issue where we have, I would say now, at least 100 or more, and I have no way of telling at the moment, but I've had interactions with folks, and I've seen their comments, and I've seen evidence that they've had videos removed that they uploaded, and these were copies of our documentary, which we welcome people to get copies of. It's Creative Commons licensed. So that's a free speech issue, and it's huge. And the other issue, I think, or the other story that emerged from this was the solidarity within the internet community. It just seems like finally a lot of these people who were real divisive and didn't come to any kind of mind on a particular on the Sandy Hook event in general, but also just as a standing up for the rights of the YouTuber, the little guy. We hadn't seen that until recently, with suddenly this solidarity emerging out of who knows where. So it's fascinating, and this has been going on every day. It just gets more and more pronounced as time goes by.
Yeah, I guess people are when you start to censor information, you only make it more valuable. More people want it. When the government says, don't look at this, that's where we want to look. And when you have, I guess you guys are getting lots of copyright violation notices. I know we put up at least 3 different versions in the article that we posted, and systematically they would get knocked down. And to me, that does become a free speech issue, where you're not using songs or copyrighted material. This is stuff that's out in the public domain. Yep. News footage. I mean, you're not getting attacked by the news corporations using their footage. I mean, so what do you think is behind this to try and silence you? And why did they pick this documentary out of all the other pieces of evidence that are out there? Why do you think this is what got people so riled up?
Well, I think that this one is scary in a way to them. Let's just think of it as there are some potentially perpetrators out there of this, if you want to think of it as a hoax. And I hate to even go so far as to say that. I'd like just to get, I want just the facts to be known. But I would say that if they were out there watching and they saw that a group of individuals came together in a cooperation like this, in solidarity, that would be a little more of a threat to them than if there were a lot of just individual people out there, researchers or YouTubers, that would, be producing material like this. So this is probably one of the reasons why it's, a real affront to them and a little bit frightening to them, which I'm actually very happy. It's just information, and we don't have anything in there that we're upset about or feel that we made a mistake on. There are some things that we think might be mistakes, but we certainly, our intent was good. So we're proud of what we've done, and if they're afraid of it, then that's that's good, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd say that
go
any
ahead.
of the things that could be perceived as mistakes simply